Welcome back, guys. Hope you did a good job on your 1-1 through 1-3 quiz. And today we're going to be going into Unit 1, Notes 4 on angle measure. Our objectives or our learning targets today is I know and can apply properties of angles to solve problems. So we're going to be talking about angle measure, and before we get into that, we got to talk about some definitions. The first one is going to be a ray, which is a part of a line with one endpoint that extends indefinitely in one direction. So for example, if we look over here in our drawing, this is going to be a ray. We have one endpoint at W, and it extends indefinitely in one direction. We could also say that SX is a ray with one endpoint. We're going to label them just like we would a line, except for we're going to draw a ray above it. So our first one we could say was WT and extend it in one direction. Or we could also call that one XT if our endpoint was here at X. If we just had this. That could also be one of our rays. And then we also had SX as a ray. So notice that the line above it is actually a ray. It has an endpoint and extends in one direction. Then we talk about an angle. An angle is formed by two non-collinear rays. So those are our sides that meet at a common point, which is our vertex. So for example, if we have two rays here, and they have a common point, that vertex C. So we would see that our sides were AC and BC. And then our vertex was point C. The sides, those rays, we could also write those as CA and CB. Those are going to be our rays. All right. So let's talk about a few other things. An angle divides a plane into three distinct parts. You have your angle, which is our lines here. Points B, C, and D all lie on the angle. Then we have our exterior, which is anything outside the angle. So the green here would be some exterior, and that's where our point A lies. And then we also have our interior, which is where our point E lies. So our three parts that our plane has been divided up into: the angle, the exterior, and the interior of the angle. So let's just look at this diagram and answer some questions here. It says, name a point on the exterior of angle DEB. So DEB. That middle letter in our angle always represents our vertex. Okay, so we have a point on the exterior. So we're looking for anything outside in this green area here. So we have two options. We have G, or we see that point F is also set outside. Okay, so now number 2 says, name all the angles that have B as a vertex. Okay, you'll notice that we have letters and we have numbers in here. And the letters, if you use 3 letters, that represents an angle. Or you can use the number that's between the two rays that also represents an angle. So if we look here, we have GBA. So angle GBA has B as a vertex. Then we can look here and we see another one, ABD. So angle ABD. Remember, we want the vertex to be that middle letter, it needs to be B. We also could use DBE. So angle DBE. And then we have one more here, which could be EBG. So angle EBG. I want you also to give me the numbers. So you guys should come up with the number that we use for our angles. So angle 10 or whatever. All right, name the sides of angle 5. So I'm going to highlight just angle 5 for you. So angle 5 is the one that's here, and I want you to name the sides. So you're going to be having two rays that look like that. Name the sides of angle 5. Then number 4 says, what's another name for angle 7? So angle 7 is going to be this one right here. So if I'm giving you it in a number and I ask for another name, you're going to be giving us an angle with 3 letters. So go ahead and finish those up for us. All right, let's classify some angles. Our first one here, we have a picture. It should look familiar. It's a right angle. Whenever you see that little box in the corner, that means that our measure is 90 degrees and it's a right angle. Our next angle is less than 90 degrees, less than 90 degrees. So this one is acute. Think about something that's small. Most people think it's so cute. So an acute angle is a small angle. Okay, our third angle is greater than 90 degrees, and this is an obtuse angle. All right, and then the last one is a line, and so that one's measure of 180 degrees, and so this is a straight angle. Okay, straight angle, it makes a straight line. Okay, so 5 and 6 are both asking you to classify angles. So 5 says classify SYT. So SYT is for 5, and 6 asks for SYX. All right, so you guys can classify those basic angles for us. Bring those for the next day we have class. The last thing we are going to talk about is an angle bisector. It's a ray that splits an angle into 2 congruent angles. Remember we talked about congruent? They have the same measure or they're equal. Okay, splits into congruent angles. See these little curves here? These are representing that these 2 angles are congruent. So the angle is bisected. So we could say that angle WXY is congruent. So don't forget our congruent symbol, to angle YXZ, which is YXZ. So those have the same measure. All right, so let's look here at our next problem. It says KN bisects, so splits equally into halves, JKL. So JKL is split into 2 congruent parts. If the measure of JKN is 8x minus 13 and NKL is 6x plus 11, find JKN. So before we can find the measure of JKN, we actually need to find out what x is. Well, it's a bisector, so splits equally in half, so I can set those 2 pieces equal to each other. We're going to go ahead and solve this for x by subtracting 6x. And we get 11 equals 2x minus 13. Let's add 13 to both sides. So we get 24 equals 2x. So x equals 12. Now this isn't our solution because we asked for the measure of JKN. JKN uses this formula. So we're going to plug our x back into x. So we have 8 times 12 minus 13. 8 times 12 gives us 96, and minus 13. So that tells us the angle of JKN is equal to 83. And because we're talking about angles, we're going to use that degrees symbol. Make sure you put that degrees symbol on there. That's our label, just as if we would need to label with inches or feet or miles or seconds. It's the same type of label. All right, so I ask you guys to come with this last problem done for class. It says given QS bisects angle PQT. So let's draw this out. We'll do PQ. We know that that's the vertex because it's the middle point. P QS bisects. So we need to create a ray and put S on there. It bisects. This is congruent to this. All right, PQT. So the whole angle is 6x plus 4. And TQS, which is half of it, is 7x minus 2. Find the entire measure. Well, if PQT is 6x plus 4 and SQT is half of that, I want you guys to think about what our equation will look like, and I want you to find x. And then once you find x, plug it back into PQT. Bring that done for the next day we have class. Don't forget to go on and take your Schoology quiz. See you.